Okay, so hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be right now. My name is Elon Ferdman. I am with Satori Prime. Those are pictures of myself and my brother up there. And I will be here on my own tonight. But just so you know, for the future, my brother and I host these kind of trainings once a week. So make sure to keep checking us out for all of the latest. We do all sorts of tech oriented webinars. This one is going to be more of a mindset webinar. And as you can see from the title today, we're going to deal with why they're millionaires and you're not. So rather than just go to fluff, I just want to jump right in. We have a lot, like I said, to cover. So just a little bit about SatoriPrime.com. SatoriPrime.com is Guy and my brainchild. The intention of SatoriPrime.com is to be a portal, if you will, or an incubator for all those looking to grow themselves personally, specifically in business. We share all sorts of free trainings and information and resources that have really helped us grow, and we gladly share those with you. And tonight will just be an example of that. So specifically, the intention of tonight's training is to find what I call your money blueprint. Then once we figure out your money blueprint, I'm going to actually show you ways how you can reset what I'm going to call your financial thermostat. And then finally, we're going to deal with how to change your poor thoughts, in other words, the poor person thoughts, into those of the rich. Now, we always say you can take notes. I specifically urge you on this one to, in fact, on certain exercises, I will ask you to take notes. Generally, some of these exercises, when I do them with larger groups, I actually give them a bit of time to go through the process. But with us, since we only have about 45 minutes to an hour, we'll try to go through as much information as possible. But again, it's really, really important to be as present as you can and just be listening from your own point of view, and bring your own life to this. It'll really make this very, very critical for you. Okay, so this will hopefully be recorded if we don't have too many technical issues, and I'll keep checking in the box here to see if you guys have any questions every once in a while. So if you guys have a question as we go through, there will be a Q&A session at the end, but if you have any questions as we go through, just make sure you type them in and I will hopefully get to them. Okay, so I appropriately titled this, Your Brain Will Hate This. By the way, guys, can you just let me know, are you seeing my screen okay? Just type there in the box. I just want to make sure before I go further, you're actually seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, you can't see my screen. Okay, so let's try this. Hold on. Oh. Okay, how about now, guys? Okay, awesome. Well, I'm glad I asked early. I'm going to try to do it this way. Tell me if you guys can still see this. You know what? I'm not, because then I can't switch screens. Okay, back to this. Okay, cool. All right, you're with me. So that's good. Good. Okay, cool. So all I went through is just the intention, so you didn't really miss anything. Like I said, we'll go over money blueprint, financial thermostat, and then change your thoughts. Now, I appropriately named this Your Brain Will Hate This because what we're going to be dealing today is with what I call slight attacks onto your ego or your brain's way of thinking. And you're going to notice that inside of this conversation, you might get tired or you're going to want to check out or stop listening to what I'm saying. That should be your trigger that this is the thing that your brain or voice or whatever you want to call it really doesn't want to hear, because we're really going to be attacking your thought patterns tonight. So anytime you hear something like a voice inside your head say, I already know this, or, oh, that's not right, that's totally wrong, he's making this up, all that kind of stuff, I just want you to be aware of that voice and bring yourself back to the conversation. Now keep in mind, everything that I'm going to say tonight, none of it is quote unquote the truth. I just want to kind of poke some holes at ways that you've been thinking. I really want you to try this on. If at the end of it, it rubs you the wrong way or doesn't feel, take what you like, leave what you don't. We'll keep it at that. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to jump right into this. Let me just see if anyone has any issues or questions or anything like that. Okay. All right, we're all good. So, what is your money blueprint? I'm going to give you a couple examples. Take Donald Trump for an example. The man has lost millions, maybe even billions, and still manages to get it back every single time. And yet, we have people, and I read a stat recently that blew me away, that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt. And that's really, I want you to keep those kind of two images in mind. You should be asking yourself, well, why does Donald Trump able to lose millions or billions of dollars and regain it within a year? Meanwhile, people that win the lottery can lose it all very quickly and do so 70% of the time. And the reason is that most people don't even have the capacity to create and then hold large amounts of money. As a matter of fact, 80% of people will never be financially free. So unless this is an area of your life that you are consciously working on, chances are you're not going to get to the levels that you want to get to. And tonight, hopefully, I'll give you some tools that will allow you to recondition yourself to be able to get there. Okay, so here's what I want to look at. I want to look at a financial thermostat. And the reason I call it a financial thermostat is because each of us has the ability to obtain a certain wealth based on certain conditions that I'm going to get to in a little bit. So, for example, let's go back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's financial thermostat is set to a blazing millions, if not billions, okay? Most people, financial thermostats, are set to thousands, not millions, okay? And some people are set so cold that they're below zero. But we all have what I call this financial thermostat. And if you really want to get nitty gritty about it, all you got to do is look at your life today and you'll know roughly where your financial thermostat is set to. So unless you're a millionaire today, chances are your financial thermostat isn't set to millions. Now, how do most people attack this quote-unquote financial thermostat? Let's use a tree as an analogy. Say you have a peach tree, okay? Most people go about it because they just look at the branches, they look at the fruit, they'll prune, they'll water, they'll deal with, adding more sun, all that kind of stuff, dealing with what's above the surface. But it doesn't matter what they do, the peach tree will only be able to produce peaches. The reason is because the only way to change the type of tree and the type of fruit is by changing the root or the tree itself. But the way we look at things, we actually are generally looking at the roots, what's on the surface. We're hardly ever dealing with what's below the surface. And today's webinar is primarily going to deal with what's below the surface. The roots that were created when you were very, very young, and you are completely unaware that they are ruling your everyday life. Okay? So, is there anything else I want to say about that? Okay, no, we're going to jump right into this next slide. Okay, so there are three primary ways that we are conditioned, and this is just so you know, these are conditioned in every area of life. Today, I want to focus that on money, but you can really take what I'm going to teach you today to map it on any area of your life. And the way we are conditioned, and these happen when we're very, very young, happen in three forms of programming, if you will. The first is verbal programming. So, what did you hear about money or wealthy people or rich people when you were young? And we're going to go through each one of these individually, and I'm going to actually show you exercises so that you can break some of these thought patterns. Second, what did you see when you were young? So what did you see inside of your family structure around money or around wealthy people or rich people? And third and finally, specific incidences that you were a part of or witnessed that you experienced when you were young. And we're going to break each of these down step by step. So the first, verbal programming. And like I said, this involves what did you hear about money? What did you hear about wealth? And what did you hear about rich people? So being that this is not an interactive type webinar, I'm going to actually I'm going to just share with you some of the things that through the years I've actually heard people say. So things like money is the root of all evil, or save your money for a rainy day, I'm sure a bunch of your parents always used to say, or rich people are greedy, rich people are criminals, filthy rich, or you have to work hard to make money. And one of my favorites, and I'm sure every one of us has heard it, money doesn't grow on trees. You can't be rich and spiritual. Money doesn't buy happiness. Money talks. The rich get richer and the poor get poor. That's not for people like us. Not everyone can be rich. There's never enough. And then finally, one we've all heard, we can't afford it. Okay, so these are obviously phrases. I'm sure most of us have heard many of them. But let's actually deal with what happens when you hear those phrases. So imagine you're a little child and you hear these phrases and they just become part of the conversation that you're having inside of your family. Now they seem harmless, right? They don't seem like they're out to hurt anyone. They seemed very real at the time. Your parents were in different situations. What you don't realize is these statements have a very long-lasting effect on us. And they program us, as you're going to see throughout this webinar, to think a certain way around money. So here's the way we want to attack this. And this is going to be an exercise for each one of the programming structures that I want you to do. So here's what I want you to write down. Under awareness, here's what you're going to want to do. I want you to write down all the statements that you heard about money, about wealth, and about rich people when you were young. Okay, we're not going to have time to do it now, but I really want you to take time after this webinar when it's fresh in your mind to do this. Then you're going to take step 2, which is understanding. I want you to write down how you believe these statements have affected your financial life thus far. In other words, where you are today, how have these statements, how do you see them playing out in your life so far? The third step is you're going to want to start, and this is an exercise that I want you to do on a daily basis, once you are aware of the conversations and once you're aware of how they've stifled you so far in life, the next step is to see how these thoughts are only learned. They're not really part of who you are. They're not part of your anatomy. They're just things that you've heard, but you're going to see how they've profoundly affected the way you live. And then as a side part of that is, you want to start noticing that at any moment when these thoughts pop up and they debilitate you, you actually have a choice in that present moment to be and do something different as the adult that you say you are and the person that you say you are. So when you hear something like that pop up in your brain and you say something to yourself like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or I can't afford that, or whatever that conversation might be, I want you in that moment to say, listen, that's not necessarily true. That's just something that I was trained from a very young age, And I'm choosing now to adopt a new way of thinking that supports who I say I am right now. Okay? So that's the first one. The first one is verbal programming, things that we heard, things that were ingrained in us from a very, very young age. Okay. Second is called modeling. Modeling, let me just make sure I'm at, okay. Modeling is ways that our parents or people that we grew up with, how we saw them dealing with money. And different families obviously had different structures. So for example, did your parents manage money well, or were they mismanaging money? Were they spenders or were they savers? Investors or non-investors? Some of our parents were very, very large risk takers. Some were very conservative and thrifty with their money. For some, money came very easily. For others, it came as a struggle. For example, for me and my family, my parents were immigrants, so money was always, always a struggle in my family. It's something I'd always had to deal with. And then for others, was it a source of joy or a source of bitter arguments? I heard a crazy sentence once that said, one of the largest reasons that couples get divorced today is due to arguments around finances, which was just staggering. Now, I want to share a quick story with you just to prove to you how programmed we are about money. So, a husband for the holidays brings a ham for his wife to cook. He brings her this huge ham, and she goes to cook it, and before she cooks it, she basically cuts off a quarter of the ham, sticks it in a pot, and throws it in the oven. And he looks at her like, honey, why did you just cut off that quarter of a ham? What are you doing? She says, well, that's just how you cook it. He's like, what do you mean that's just how you cook it? She said, well, that's how my mom cooked it. So now he was intrigued. So he said, okay, went to his mom. She obviously came over for the holidays, and he said, your daughter, I brought home this ham. She took this ham, cut a quarter of the ham off, and put it in the oven. And the mom says, yeah, well, that's how you cook it. He's like, what are you talking about? Why is that how you cook it? She goes, well, I don't know. That's how my mom cooked it. So he finally goes to the grandma, and he says, your daughters take this, I brought this ham, and they tell me that in order to cook a ham, you have to cut off a quarter of the ham, and then you cook it. Why did you do that? And you know what their answer was? She said, my pan wasn't big enough. So she did something because that's the way she had to. But either her daughter or her granddaughter had no idea, because it's just something that they saw her mom or grandma do. It got passed down to the point that they didn't even have an idea. They were cooking in pans that could have fit the whole ham, but they had no idea. And the reason I put this example in there is because we do the same thing. So just like with verbal programming, modeling is even more powerful. Because when we're kids, what we see becomes very ingrained in us. We just don't realize it as it's happening. So I'm gonna again take you through the similar exercise that we did with verbal. I want you to do the same thing with this. And then I'm going to come back and just say one other thing. I'll come back to this slide in a second. We'll come back and talk a little bit about motivation before we move on. But first, let's go through the exercise. So again, the exercise here is, I want you to consider the ways of being and habits that each of your parents or people that you grew up with had around money and wealth. I really want you to sit down and write the things that you remember seeing or the way that you remember it being when you grew up. Then the next step, just like in the previous one, is to understand and write down the effect that this modeling has on your current financial situation. So for example, if your parents were very conservative with their money, chances are you are very conservative with your money. Now, guys, it may have produced amazing results for you, and it may have produced terrible results for you. But what I really want you to get here is in the step 3, which is the disassociation portion of this, is that you can view these things as things that you just learned or heard. They're not who you are. You act like they are because that's what's natural for you and that's what's comfortable. But in this third step, this third critical step, I want you to get that you have a choice in every moment to choose how you want to view that situation. And the more you become aware of the conversations and the examples that you witnessed when you were young, the more freedom that you will be able to possess as you move forward. And then the final step is really to declare for yourself on an ongoing basis that you were modeled after a certain way, but that's not necessarily who you are, and it's not necessarily your opinions about money. It's really things that were brought up to you. And then, like I said, I just want to go back here for a second. This is very, very important. I stuck it in. It's not really part of this webinar, but another thing that you guys should be thinking about is your motivation and reasons of making money, because it really is critical to your success. So if your motivation for acquiring money or success comes from, let's call them non-supportive roots or things that we talked about before, and what I mean by that is whether they come from fear, anger, or a need to prove yourself, your money will never bring you happiness. So if you're trying to prove your parents wrong, if you're trying to get money out of a fear of loss or something like that, I just want you to keep in the back of your mind that those kind of roots will not give you the fruit that you're actually looking for. Okay? So just wanted to hit that up before we move on to the next one. Now, the last one, very, very important, and for most of us, devastatingly painful. Okay? Each one of us has some sort of experience. I'm going to share a personal one with you around money when you were young. It may have been with your parents, it may have been with your friends, other family members, it doesn't matter, but there's definitely some incidents, and it doesn't necessarily have to be when you were very young, that you had around money. So I want to share one with you that was very personal to me. When my father I believe he just turned 40, he had left his work and decided to invest in the stock market. And he took $50,000 of our family's money and did a lot of courses and trained himself on how to trade and did all these like fake, where you use fake money and trade, etc. And went live eventually after like 2-3 months of doing this fake business. And long story short, basically lost the whole $50,000 in under a month's time. He became very, very depressed, almost clinically depressed, had to go on depression medication. And it was painful to see the man who, and I'm sure for most of us, our fathers have this kind of Superman-like figure to us, and he really, I just watched him crumble. And I remember in the experience thinking that, that kind of responsibility and taking those kind of risks is very, very scary and only leads to very bad things. And I didn't know till I started doing this work on myself how much something like that had affected me. How I was always terrified to even invest that $100, or my friends would invest $1,000 in stock and always approach me and say, listen, it's a good deal, and I was terrified to do it. And only when I kind of started digging into my history and looking at these type of things did I realize the profound effect that something like that had on me. So again, with these incidents, here's what I want you to do. And again, we're going to do the same exercise for the incidents. I want you to consider specific emotional incidents. These are going to be very dramatic, painful, emotionally driven incidents that you experienced around money when you were young. Okay? I want you to write down these incidents, and then the key here, again, in the understanding is try to start figuring out and tying that string on how did these incidents affect your current financial life? Why is your life the way it is today? How can you make that connection? And then again, in the disassociation process, once you get all of this out of your head and out of your subconscious and see it written down on paper, it's going to be much, much easier to realize that it's not who you are necessarily. It is just something that you learned. It's not who you are. And again, you have the choice at any moment, in that present moment, to be different and choose to be different or do something different. And then finally, you want to start in the declaration, on a daily basis. If you're going to buy something or you're looking at an opportunity or something and you realize you get stopped, just like you've done in previous situations, I want you to consciously release those non-supportive money experiences, those non-supportive thoughts. I want you to release it and create new ones that are consistent with who you say you are today. Okay. So those are, sorry guys. Okay. So those are some of the things, those are the 3 conditions that are programmed. So again, verbal, modeling, and incidents. And after this, I really want you guys to sit down and brainstorm, because this is the stuff that's underneath the ground that you're never dealing with. Working harder is not going to get you more money if your financial thermostat and your financial blueprint doesn't allow for that. So unless you deal with the roots, and by the roots I mean these conversations, these incidents, these experiences, you're never going to have a foundation that will allow for the kind of financial freedom and wealth that you are looking for. Okay. So now we're going to pause that conversation, and I'm going to go on a slightly different attack. Let me just see if any questions, anything like that. Anybody? Okay, good. You're all there. Okay, cool. All right. So before I go into the individual conversations, here's what I want you to be aware of. Our mind is like a computer. What do I mean by that? Have you ever noticed that, I'll give you 2 examples. One, on a very basic level, you see someone walking down the street. You might only see the side of their face or something like that. But you ever notice how your brain has the ability to almost visualize what that person would be like? They might be someone you know, they might not be someone you know, but you can almost look at someone from behind and you almost have an idea or a vision or a picture in your head of what they'll look like. I'll give you another example. You're sitting at your desk at work and your boss will say something like, they'll buzz you on the phone and say, I'd like you to come into my office. Did you ever notice that on that walk to the office, you already have 4, 5, 6 different scenarios of exactly what's going to happen when you walk into his office? Here's why. Humans, our brain works a certain way, and it's programmed this way because it actually protects us. What do I mean by that? If you walk into a completely unknown, blank situation, we get very frightened. As humans, we're very frightened of unknown, something completely new to us. So the brain, in order to alleviate that, will pull up all these files and incidences and things instantly, to create some sort of image that fits as close of an image as it can imagine to what you are about to witness. So that way you feel more comfortable walking into that situation. Now, while on the one hand, yeah, that might protect you. On the other hand, where it hinders you is, it doesn't matter. You can walk into a brand new situation, a brand new business opportunity, a brand new conversation with a client, a brand new conversation with even in a relationship that you're looking for. And the second you walk in with all of that previous stuff, which I call autopilot, all of that vision of how it was before, you've already eliminated the possibility of it showing up any other way, really. Because what you've basically said right now is, oh, I know this already. I know how this is going to go. And you've already cut out the probability that this is going to show up some different way. And we do this around money. You've been put in multiple situations, whether you work with us already in our business or you have a business of your own, whatever the situation might be, where you've basically operated on autopilot because a certain situation looked exactly like some other situation in your past. This person tried to rip you off, so now every person that talks to you is going to try to rip you off. Or you got pressured by some salesman, and now every single person that looks like that or sounds like that is going to pressure you. And I just want you to be aware of all these ways that we're programmed, okay? So now, given what I just said, I'm sure you're very well aware that while you have certain thought patterns, rich people have very different thought patterns. Donald Trump has very different files and folders on autopilot than you and I do. That is why he's a billionaire. So today, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to give you my top 5, maybe top 6 thought patterns that really, really vary from poor thoughts to rich thoughts. Okay, so let's jump right in. Now, hold on one second. Let's see. Just want to see if you guys, anybody have any questions? Everyone still with me? Turn this up. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so rich look at life is that I create my own life. While poor people always have these conversations, oh, life just happens to me. And they play the victim role. Now, I just want to add as a caveat, I don't believe that anyone is truly a victim, but people play victim a lot, whether it's around money, relationships, health, finance, whatever it is. That's somewhere that we definitely go, and that's one of the biggest differences between rich and poor people. So I just want to give you a couple of indicators on how you know you're in the victim role. So the first is blame. People that play the victim role blame everyone and everything. They love what I call the blame game. And I don't know if you know, but the object of the blame game is to see how many people and circumstance you can point the finger at without ever looking at yourself. So victims will blame the economy, they'll blame the government, the stock market, their broker, the type of business they're in, the people they work with, upline, downline, they blame everything. They even blame God, okay? They'll blame their parents. The bottom line is it's always someone else or something else to blame. Never themselves. So if you're ever finding yourself in one of those situations, that's an indicator that you're in that blame game. And this is how you have, you're at the effect of life rather than causing life. The second is justification. This is one of my favorite lines that I've heard over the last 10 years. When I talk to someone about finances, they'll always, if they justify it with, well, money's really just not that important to me. I can tell you with 100% certainty, if someone tells me money is not really important to them, they don't have any. So if you want to play a game with your friends and someone says that line to you and you want to pretend like you're a mind reader, just say, well, let me guess, you're broke. So, look, I don't want to say that money is everything. I don't want to take it to that level. But, some people will say, well, money isn't important as love or as happiness. When you think about it, that's kind of a stupid analogy or a stupid comparison. It's almost like asking, well, what's more important, your arm or your leg? One really doesn't have to do with one or another. While love, I think, is an amazing thing, and obviously happiness and joy is something we should all strive for, at the end of the day, you can't deposit those things in the bank. You can't go build hospitals or churches or your dream home or your business with love and happiness. You need money. That's just the way the world's structured. So if you find yourself justifying your situation, that's another indicator that you are in this life happens to me role, okay? Finally, complaining. Now, inside of complaining, I want to just point one thing, that whatever you focus on expands. Another way to say that is what you resist persists. So when you're complaining, basically what are you focusing on? You're not focusing on what's going right in your life. You're just focusing on what's going wrong with your life. And if what I said is everything that you focus on expands, well, guess what you get more of? If you're a complainer, then what you're going to get more is more things to complain about. Someone wrote this great quote. He said, "When you're complaining, you become a living, breathing crap magnet." I always love that. But, his point was, do you ever notice that people that have crappy lives always end up complaining the most? And they'll say, well, I'll stop complaining when my life's not crappy. Well, maybe if you stop complaining, your life wouldn't be so crappy. Because really what you're focusing on is what's expanding. So I want to just give you a side homework assignment or a challenge, if you will, okay? I promise that by taking this on, it will literally alter your life. It's going to take something from you, but it will literally alter your life. The challenge is this. I want you for the next 7 days to not complain. Not complain at all. That means both out loud and in your head, which is even more important. Because here's what's going to happen. The thoughts or the complaint type thoughts in your brain end up becoming your words. You'll know that when those words stop coming out, that you've actually managed to alter your thoughts. And if what I said, take it for truth for right now, is that what you focus on expands, the second you get rid of those type of complaining conversations, you will start creating your life in a whole new way. Okay, so I just want to leave you with that little challenge, and I'd love to hear, for those of you that take that on, see how that goes. Okay, next. Rich, they play the game to win, while poor people play the game not to lose. This is almost like if you've ever played sports or if you watch sports or anything like that, the difference between playing on defense versus playing on offense. Now, while playing on defense, you might last a certain amount of time, but that's not really, your chances of actually winning by just playing defense are pretty much slim to none. Not slim to one. So that's a big thing that I want you to look at. So, what am I saying? Most people's primary concern when it comes to money is survival and security. That's the way poor people think about it. We survive, we want security. We want to feel comfortable. Wealthy are focused on creating wealth and abundance. So can you see how that kind of is a big shift between, notice the way you live and the way that these, the rich, quote unquote, live. So they don't want some money. Rich want lots of money. But let's say, I don't want to say we, but poor thought is, most people, if you ask them how much money they want enough money to pay their bills, pay off their debts, pay their bills on time would be a miracle for most people. Middle class might take it a step further, a baby step, but a step further. And they'll say, I want to be comfortable. Well, I hate to break it to you, but there's a huge difference between being comfortable and being rich. Comfortable allows you to live a certain lifestyle. Comfortable allows you to, maybe pay your bills. But if your goal is to have enough money to pay bills, well, guess what? That's exactly how much money you will have. Your financial thermostat, think about it this way. Donald Trump doesn't think about having enough money to pay bills. He thinks about raising enough money and having enough money to build his next venture or to build his megalopolis hotel or whatever he's up to, right? But for most of us, we don't even think that way. We don't even think we deserve it. We'll get to the deserving part in a little bit. Okay, I'll give you a perfect little example. When you go to a restaurant, how many of you actually order based on what you want to eat? I'd assert that many of you order based on how much something costs. You look at the right-hand side of the menu more than you do the left-hand side. Rich never look at the right-hand side. They create enough wealth so that they can order and have what they want because that is what they want. Okay, so next. Rich are committed to getting rich, while the poor talk about wanting to be rich. Now, I'm going to assert something here that, like I said, I think for most of you, your brain is really, really not going to like. Most people don't want to be rich. Okay, so you might be saying to yourself, well, obviously I want to be rich. I'm on this thing, right? I'm on this webinar with you. But think about this. Most people have such strong negative subconscious thoughts or files about rich people and wealth and everything to do with it. They have so many negative thoughts about it that they will actually create lives that they can't. If you say something, I'll give you a few examples. If you say things about people like, oh, it's too much work, or I could lose my health if I try working this hard, or my friends and family will say, who do you think you are, and start criticizing you. All these type of thoughts, if you have these kind of things, you will actually avoid becoming rich because of a fear of being these things. Like one of my favorites is, well, what if I make it and lose it? Then I'll really be a failure. These are the kind of things that will have you subconsciously sabotage yourself to not be rich. One of my favorite. Well, it's too much responsibility. I'll have to manage all that money. I'll have to really understand investments. I'll have to worry about tax strategies and asset protection. I'll have to hire an expensive accountant and lawyers. It's too much hassle. Can you see how conversations like that, embedded subconscious conversations, or even ones that we touched on before, rich are greedy, or rich are evil, or money is evil, all these kind of conversations will actually stop you from being that, because deep down inside you've said, I never want to be that way. And if you never want to be that way, well, guess what? You have just cut off this whole arena of wealth for yourself. Okay. All right, so next. The rich think big while the poor think small. And what do I mean by that? Most people play really, really small. The reason being, and we just touched on it before, is that they're either afraid of failure, or in most cases, most people are actually afraid of their own success. They play small because they feel small or unworthy. And lastly, they don't feel that they're good enough or important enough to make a real difference in people's lives. Look, here's the bottom line. We all were brought to this earth this time around, whatever you want to believe, with some sort of gift, some sort of ability that no one else has. And it is your responsibility to share that with the world. That's why I love what I do. That's why I love working with Carbon Copy Pro, because it allows me to do that which I love most, which is train people, be with people, support people, and break down barriers to what people believe is possible for themselves and their lives. That's what I believe I came here to do. And not doing that is stingy, is playing small and is stingy. Now, have I messed it up? Have I always done the right things? Probably not. But if my vision of it is always that, to just be that for people, in my world, I cannot fail. I want to read you a quote that I absolutely love. I highlighted here. It's from a wonderful book. It's called A Return to Love. It's by an author, Marianne Williamson. And it goes like this. You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So I hope that gave you some sort of idea and some sort of freedom around these type of conversations of feeling small or unworthy. We all have something to share. And the minute you start sharing that and thinking big about yourself, you will open a whole new door for wealth. Next, and this is critical. This is something that I think sets Carbon Copy Pro apart from many, many, many other businesses. Rich associate with successful people. We model after each other. We're grateful to each other for having paved the road so that we don't have to pave our own. We try to work with people that are better than us so that we learn from people that have already been successful doing what we want to do. Most people, however, associate with negative or unsuccessful people. Think about the friends that you associate with, the ones that complain about the economy and the government not doing anything and their bosses stinking. You all know this quote, ducks swim with ducks, swans swim with swans. I assert that if you take your 5 closest friends, average out their incomes, it'll be very, very close to what you are making right now. And if you want to be rich and you want to be successful, you better surround yourself with people that are both rich and successful. And more, if you want to take it a step further, those that are actually willing to sit with you and mentor you. Having a rich person that you look up to is great, but one that actually is willing to teach you and train you and mentor you, that's a whole different level. You cannot fail when you surround yourself with those kind of people. Okay, and finally, this is critical. I can't tell you how important this is. Rich people are excellent receivers, while poor people are very poor receivers. This goes back to what we were saying before, how most people actually feel unworthy or undeserving. I put 90%. I'd venture to say that of all the people that I coach and businesses that I've coached, 90% of the time, people have some sort of conversation of not being worthy. Look, we all as children, I think it comes from something like, we were all pointed as children what we were doing wrong and how stupid we were. And it's very rare that you had some people tooting your horn and saying, oh, you're awesome, you do everything right. It doesn't usually go that way. So a lot of it comes from that. But it's stuff, again, that you really want to look at those conversations and understand how they inhibit you from having this type of mentality of being an excellent receiver. Now, I want to just kind of take the reverse side of this, because everyone knows how good it feels to give. Innately, I think people love to give. They love to give gifts. They love to be of service. I think innately as humans, it's something that we love. We love it so much that even when we witness other people doing it, we love it then too. Now, I'm going to spin this for you a little bit. In order for someone to give, someone on the other hand has to be there to receive, right? Now, if you don't allow, if you're not willing to receive something, you have basically cut off the ability for that person to give. And that person loves to give. They live their lives to give. And do you ever try to give something to someone and they just completely resisted it? And you get left feeling a little crappy. Like, oh, that didn't feel so good. I didn't like that. But this is what we do every single day. I want to give you an interesting story about this. It's called the lean-to story. A guy was out in the woods, and I don't know if you guys know what a lean-to is, but when you camp out in the woods, you take like a tarp or a sheet and you tie it to a tree at a 45-degree angle to basically cover where you sleep and where you all your stuff, so in case it rains, it stays dry. And he wakes up in the morning, completely dry, all his stuff is dry, and right at the end of the lean-to is a huge puddle of water. And what he realized in that moment is that the universe, the laws of the universe are very succinct. The universe is always, always, always giving. Now that rain was falling, and it tried to fall where he was, but because he had the lean-to, it couldn't fall there, so it went to the next logical or the next place that it could go. Because in that situation, when he realized, if you don't allow or if you are not a good receiver, well, guess what? That wealth is just going to go to someone else. So if you train the universe that you don't like to receive things, you've basically trained it not to even bother to give it to you. How many times would you try to give someone a gift if they said no, no thank you, no, no thank you, no, no thank you? Would you do 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times? After a while, you're going to stop. You're not even going to bother. So same with this. You really want to realize, like, how many times have people offered you something and you said no? Your first response is no. I want to kind of give you something like a new way to train yourself. Something that, you could say to the universe, if anyone has something great coming to them that they're not willing to take it, send it to me. I'm open and willing to receive all of your blessings. Thank you. Just by doing that and changing that context, you have now opened something in a way that you've never been open to before. Walk around and just start saying yes to things. See how it feels. And I just want to go back one second because I found another quote here as I'm looking at my notes about people feeling unworthy or undeserving. And this is by T. Harv Eker, who we'll touch up in a bit. But he wrote, if a 100-foot oak tree had the mind of a human, it would only grow to 10 feet tall. Just to kind of point to the unworthiness or undeserving thing that we have going on. And then here's what I want to leave you with. This is really the last point. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you're a poor receiver, you're a poor receiver in all areas. Remember, I told you what I'm going to teach you today really encompasses all areas. So if you're a poor receiver when it comes to love or people's help, it's all the same thing. But here's the best part. When you become an excellent receiver, you will actually become an excellent receiver everywhere and open to all that the universe has to offer in all areas of your life. Just remember, say yes and make sure you thank. Be grateful for whatever comes your way. Focus on what you have, not what you don't have. Stop complaining. Be thankful. And I want you to really go back and do the homework that I told you about, which is really sit there and find your verbal, your modeling, and your incidents, and start mapping them on your life and what's been going on today. Okay? All right. So at this point, we have about 5 minutes left. I want to see if any of you guys have any questions. So if you have any questions, you can just type them in the box, and I will see if I can get to them. But I also want to get to, because I wanted to offer an awesome bonus tonight. So let's see. All right. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna take it as I did an awesome job. Either that or you guys are all very confused. Okay, so if you still have questions, type them in. They'll pop up in my box as we go through, but I just want to make sure that we finish on time. Okay, I want to offer you guys an unbelievable free gift. I was actually taught a lot of this stuff by a gentleman, T. Harv Eker, who I actually just read you one of his quotes. He is the author of Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, and many years ago I was actually lucky enough to attend his seminar. His seminar at the time, just so you guys know, was just under $2,000. He's since created a whole slew of courses under the Peak Potential umbrella of courses, all of which has just been amazing courses. And today, I want you to write this link down, www.satoriprime.com/peak. When you go there, you're going to actually hear a video of T. Harv Eker himself. On that page, there's actually an offer for free. I'm going to repeat that. For a free 3-day live seminar with T. Harv Eker. I guess the price of the course went down. It's listed right now at $795 is the normal fee. The course travels all throughout the United States, so I'm sure at some point it'll be coming to a city near you. But I cannot encourage this enough. You know, I basically touched the tip of the iceberg today. Imagine the conversation and the depths of your subconscious that you will be able to go to in a 3-day, all-day seminar. And if you go to that link, you'll actually be able to get free tickets to this seminar. So just amazing stuff. Okay, let's see what else I got here. All right, also, for any of you that are attending, if you've registered with us before, then this is the link you can go to. And for tonight, you can actually use this code 9KIT, and it will actually give you 75% off of the normal price of our test drive kit. So I'll give you guys time to do that. Just carboncopypro.com/apply. And the promo kit again is 9KIT. Okay. And if you have not yet registered with us, here's how you can do that. You can go here to satoriprime.com. That will get yourself registered. You get a ton of information. You can review all the text, audio, and video on that page. Just amazing information. Whether you decide to join Carbon Copy Pro or not, just an awesome program. And again, same 9KIT. And lastly, you can follow myself and my brother Guy. My name is Elon Ferdman. His name is Guy. At satoriprime.com. As always, we have tons of free content on there. We're constantly updating with everything that we find that's been really great and helpful for us. Also, you can follow us at facebook.com/satoriprime, and always feel free and email us at info@satoriprime.com. So guys, unless there's any other questions, let me just double check. No, it seems like that was good. If you have any questions, I would also love to hear your comments. So if you guys can email us, after the 7-day challenge of not complaining, or if you get stuck on anything, or you come across a conversation and you're not really sure on how it's been affecting you in your life. I've been a personal coach for a good part of 10 years right now, and I'd be more than happy to sit with you for a few minutes and see if I can give you some personal coaching and some clarity around it. So with that, I'm going to wrap this webinar up. I thank you all for your time. I thank you all for your listening. And I hope this webinar has been great. And I hope that I hear unbelievable stories on how this has changed your life and allowed miracles of financial abundance to show up for you. So till then, have an awesome night, and we'll see you guys all on the next webinar. Good night.